Hi everybody, Chris here from Truly Holistic. Today we're going to talk about sun worshipping in regards to its connection to the creation of religion, and also, the core origin of religion and how it connects to consciousness. So this is going to be a really interesting video, and we're also going to bring in some tools that we regularly use here at Truly Holistic, which are symbols of the sun. So what we're going to start with is this aspect of, we're going to start with Christianity. Okay, and that obviously in Christianity is the Son of God is Jesus. Okay, and Jesus is represented as the Son of God, S-O-N, Son. And what happens with really duality and the human's involvement into duality, and duality is a term we use regularly here at Truly Holistic, which is a limited existence. It's kind of living your life as the human. Now the problem with that is that the human is our conditioned version of ourselves. We came here first, the soul, and we got conditioned as the human secondly. So we can switch those two out, right? The word soul, and switch the word human out, and we can say that the soul is your authentic version of you and the human is your conditioned version of you. And we know that, the history of humanity has really been and there's an interesting play with that word. His story is that it's really been fabricated and formulated in a way that's deceived us to really know where our origins and our roots come from. As actually a soul, as a consciousness, not merely a human. And part of that deceiving of you or hoodwinking of you is to buy into the idea of, in regards to religion, that anything divine is something externalized to you, and that we need to worship that divinity. Okay, and the word divine or divinity is at its core consciousness. It's bound to consciousness. So we see in the consciousness and spirituality community the word higher self, and it's regularly used. And when we say higher self, we're talking about the higher evolved aspects of you, not something that's external to you. And again, it's a very human thing we do. We externalize things, and then we get into trouble and we start to point the finger to external and outside influence. So there's a lot of dynamics happening with all this, and we'll bring them all together like pieces of the puzzle to give us a greater picture of what this is all about. And so with that divinity aspect that we externalize out, what I've come to find every day within session work with my clients, and the information that's bringing forth, is that the divinity or the divine aspects, that consciousness aspect, is not external to you. It is you. Okay, we were conditioned as the human to embody the mind while externalize divinity. Okay, consciousness, when really the truth is it's the opposite way around. Consciousness, that divinity, is not something that we externalize. It's when we connect into our authenticity, us as a soul, as a consciousness, we realize that there's many layers and levels and expansion to who we really are. And we're not merely just a human here to play that role of being that little old human with the mentality of lack and all these things that come with it. We're actually at the core, we're a soul, we're a consciousness, and we're not merely here just to participate and observe. We're here, our sole purpose, pun intended, was to come here and expand our consciousness, our light, into creation. So we're creators. And that term is directly connected to a God, a divine being. And that's what you are. We all are that. So, the way that our reality in front of us is materializing, it's based on what the choices and decisions we're making. We're creating that. So a big thing in my sessions with people is this really bring forth this awareness that maybe it's not outside influences that's causing issues in your life, whether that's health problems, whether that's manifestation problems, whether that's relationship problems. Perhaps we should be looking directly back at ourselves. And how we do that is we create a space and a state to connect to our divinity, to all these higher aspects of ourselves, to really find out who we truly are and really delve into our authenticity. We let go of the conditioned version of ourselves, that this aspect of saving humanity. Humanity is our conditioning. To save humanity is to continue embracing our conditioning, the conditioning and the programming, to remove us away from our true self, our authentic self. So when they looked at, a lot of information that either the ancients, old civilizations that we are recapturing or finding out about, we can take that information, but what I find is it all comes down to perspective. Because we might take that information, but we might take it in a different perspective. So we're not seeing the power or the greater meaning of what that information represents, because we're not seeing it in the same perspective as the ancients did. And we're currently in a time right now that we live in a time that everything's mind creation. And the mind is very analytical, very cerebral, and it gives you observation, but it doesn't allow you to have greater knowing and understanding of what we're observing, what it represents, what it truly represents. So at the moment, this day and age, we've got infinite sources of information. That's not a problem. But we lack an understanding and knowing of what that represents. And the mind will not take us there. That's the purpose of the mind. The mind is to limit you. Okay. Consciousness, your divinity, will bring forth that wisdom, that knowing, that understanding, so you can understand your reality in a more profound way. And secondly, understand that with your creative abilities, how you then use those abilities. So then you formulate a life that reflects more your heart's desires instead of what the mind wants you to feel. So straight away, what I tell my clients is we drop any embodiment of the mind. It's called the mind, not my mind, the mind. And we embrace and embody ourselves as a soul, as a consciousness. Okay, so what I mean by this perspective thing is that the symbology of God, Jesus was the Son of God. Now, it got distorted into S-O-N, but what its original perspective and meaning was S-U-N. Because that's the thing that's been constant, is the sun. The sun rises and the sun sets. Right? So, what we come to find here is the sun is symbolic for soul. The Latin word for sun is S-O-L, pronounced just like S-O-U-L, soul. Okay? Its cosmological name, or cosmic name, is also S-O-L, the sun. Now, the sun is mainly in a plasma state. Your soul is in a plasma state. And when we say to you from a human perspective using your duality eyes, right? 1, 2, duality. Remember, your visible sight is one of your limitations as a human. You see less than 1% of what is visible in this reality, in this universe. because these eyes are locked into a very small window of frequency that we can see, that we can call physical reality. And again, we only call it physical reality based on what we can see. Okay, it's more of a perspective, not a fact, not an absolute. So when we look at the sun externally with duality eyes, as the human, we're essentially looking back at the sun, but a 1% representation of what it really is, because that's what our eyes are locked into. Okay, so as the human, I would say to the person or the client, hey, what for life to be here, for you to be here, right? If we buy this aspect that we live on this rock, which we call the earth, and it circles the star, which we call the sun, is that, I would go to them, what is the main light source and energy source for life here, for you to be here? And of course, looking outwards externally with duality eyes, that answers the sun, right? But if we use the same pathway, but we just change the perspective, we're not going to look as the human, we're going to look as the soul, and instead of using duality eyes, we're going to use our singularity eye here. That's external sight, that's internal sight, or we can shorten that to insight. And what's the definition of insight? To enable greater knowing and understanding. Wisdom. That most people are living with those are lacking. As I said before, we live in a world, infinite sources of information, but lack the understanding and knowing of what it represents. Okay. So when I go to somebody and I say, okay, instead of using these to go external, go that and go within, I want you to connect to your light source, your energy source, and what am I referencing? A soul. Okay, so we used the same pathway, and we came to the same conclusion. The only difference was perspective. Okay. And when we're talking about ascension and evolution consciously, it's not about going somewhere else. It's all based on changing perspective. Okay? So why is that important? Because we are creating reality. We're not observing and participating in reality. Okay, so the sun represents your soul. Okay? And also remember that for all of your life, you're only going to be looking through 3 eyes. Okay, if we include the singularity eye. Let's say in this duality reality, this limited reality that we're seeing with the duality eyes, you'll only see through that pair of eyes. You will not see out of anybody else's eyes. So really when we're looking up at the sky, we're looking back at our own soul. Not one sun for everybody, but one sun for you, and therefore one soul that's bound and connected to you. Okay? So you can understand why this aspect of sun worship, which was the originality of religion. Because, in religion, they talk about, and again, I'm using the example here of Christianity, and that there was God, and there was the Son of God's Jesus, right? And that also he died on the cross. Okay, and we know that the cross is another symbol for sun. Okay, and we will get to that in a minute. So essentially, not only with Christianity, but essentially all religions were all based on sun worship, worshipping the sun. Because perhaps they knew that it's just not the sun, it's a divine connection, right? It's a divine connection, the sun, because it's soul, consciousness. Okay? So I'm just going to bring up a few more facts here before we look at some symbology of the sun as well, and some of the tools that we use that are exactly in alignment with some symbology of the sun. Okay. Now, while talking about Jesus, and again, Jesus is represented as a person. Okay, S-O-N, sun. But in a lot of when Jesus was shown, a lot of the times there was rays coming off him, right? Or a sun behind him, right? The symbology of it all, right? It's so obvious when you see it in a different light. Funny that, right? Now, what my guide told me about the way that Jesus is depicted as a person is how the mind, which, as I say, is a limited, is there to limit us, for us to not come to the conclusion that we are divine, we are consciousness, we are creating our reality. The mind wants you to keep living as though you're just an observant participant in reality, so you live with the human identity guided by the mind. And all you'll ever know is this limited reality we call duality. Okay? You're living a very manipulative, deceiving, hoodwinked, blindfolded life, which a lot of people would say, people that are not awoken, let's say. And the mind's distortion of Jesus became the mind's distortion of the Sun, S-U-N. And it was distorted into S-O-N, okay? And it was just a difference of perspective. Again, that word perspective coming up there. So, some other facts here is, we got some other information that was Catholic means universal. Okay, so the greater meaning of Catholic means universal. Okay, and we're going to talk about how that could be this connection of suns, which, remember, the sun is symbolism of souls, over a multiverse. Because remember, we're multidimensional. And how does that come into play? Well, how that comes into play is that in this reality, this universe, this dimension, there are not two souls alike. Okay, so my energy signature, which is my soul, my authenticity, I don't share that with anybody in this universe reality. That's one, tells you how unique and special you are. Well, when we get born into this life as the human identity, and we join a club when we are born, which we call humanity, one of the first things we immediately get conditioned to is that we are essentially one brick amongst a many of humanity. So the complete opposite to embracing how special and unique you are. Okay? Again, the comparison of living soul embodiment in your authenticity, or living with your conditioning, which is you as a human. Okay, so you're multidimensional. Now, okay, maybe in this reality you don't share your energy signature, your soul, with someone else, but you do share that throughout all the different realities, different dimensions, universes. You can just use one of those terms: dimension, reality, or universe. So we're talking about a multiverse here, talking multi-reality or multi-dimension. So we call those variants or versions of you, because you share that same energy signature, and you are bound and connected through a quantum physics term we call quantum entanglement. Now, so a lot of the time you can be, because what we see is limited, but what we feel is not. So sometimes the things that we're feeling day to day can be a direct connection to a variant of you that exists in another reality, and you're feeling it here. Okay. Now, another term that's regularly used instead of a variant is a higher self. They'll say connect to your higher self. Now, really you got higher selves because you got different versions of you living in a number of different realities. But because they share the same energy signature, they are your oneness. You hear this in the consciousness community as well, is this important of oneness. Now, oneness this is the hoodwinking again. The oneness is not found with the human identity, so with the collective of humanity. That is the trap. That is the game of duality being played out. Your true oneness is connecting to your full, complete aspect of you that exists throughout a number of realities. Now, the origin of your energy, which we call your source self, not source for everyone. Again, that's part of that perspective of religion, right? And this whole aspect of humanity. Again, there's one collective, there's one this, there's one that. There's not one that. That's part of the conditioning. You have a source of your energy as an individual, not as a collective. Okay. Now, your source self gets divided, the energy of your source self gets divided into these different realities. Okay? So, and the closest aspect to each variant, like being, so you can call me the being in this reality, which we call generation 3. The closest aspect of my consciousness as infinite consciousness is my soul. Okay, which is that energy signature I was mentioning. And we ideally want our soul to use this vessel as an interface to be an extension to expand its light, its consciousness. That's what our sole purpose, pun intended, was to be, to do here. Not to let the mind come in and live a reality as the human, which is creating a limited existence. No, we were here to expand, because the unwritten law of consciousness is that to keep continually evolving. Okay, so expanding, ascending. Okay. Now, the variants, so versions of me that are living out a reality in all these other realities, again, their closest aspect of their consciousness is their soul as well. That's where I said before, I do share my energy signature, my soul, but in different realities. Okay? Now, we can look at the word soul, which is also, symbology of soul is sun. And now we use Jesus, S-O-N, but really it's S-U-N. But we know within Christianity is that the Son is Jesus and the Father is God. So if we use that in this example, is our source self is deemed God. Our soul, which is closer to you as a being in that reality, which is where you're trying to express your light, because that's where that's where you create. Right? We're trying to create expansion or expression. Okay? Your source self is God. And the soul aspect that's interfacing the human to expand its light, that's Jesus. Okay, if you understand that, with that dynamic. But it's not external to you, it is you. And this is the beauty about it, okay? Coming back to some of the things before we get into the symbology of the sun. Amen, and this is where the word amen comes from. Amen, when you're doing a prayer. Amen Ra. Now, Ra, and that's where it comes from originally. Ra means ray of sun, sunshine, ray of sun. So again, how it comes back to sun worshipping again. Okay. Now, this is the interesting thing with this story, right? Is that in every day the sun rises and also the sun sets. Okay. And this is the interesting thing, because when light is up, right, so the sun's up, that's generally with our circadian rhythm, is when we open these eyes. Okay, we wake up and you wake up and these eyes are open. And we go about forging our soul purpose, if we're being a good boy and doing what we're supposed to be doing, of expanding our light, our consciousness here, right? Because, that's why we're here. We're always conditioned that we're a little human, but the opposite's true. You're creating reality, okay? And actually, there's another side note to that, but we'll get to that. Is that actually no? We'll get to it now. Now, a lot of people are talk about like, again, this is from this meaning of lack of a human, little old humans, is if we're having all these conflicts that we see in the world now, like the wars and stuff like that, why aren't aliens coming down and helping us, get us through that? And a lot of people ask this question a lot, and they're very conflicted about, why don't they come and help us? Now, I get told that aliens are a higher self-representation of that individual that then has a experience with that alien. Now, so if that's the case, our higher selves are not there to jump into your reality to fix everything for you. They are there as counsel and wisdom for you to understand and learn how to use your creative power, because you're the one, you're the creator, you're the person to make the change here, not someone else. You know, the story of the human is there's going to be a savior that's going to come and save us. No, it's not that. That's part of the trap. Again, the conditioning of the human. When we bring forth through the authenticity of you as a soul and a consciousness, and hence you're a creative reality, not an observer or man or an observer or participant of reality. It's up to you. Okay. And your higher aspects of you are there as counsel, as wisdom, for you to know authentically who you are and what you're here to do, and also knowing how to do it. Okay? So, as I say, the sun comes up, these eyes open, right? But when the sun sets, okay, obviously minus all the, you know, the blue light that we're getting from our phone and computer and lights in the house and stuff, is darkness, right, when the sun goes down. And what that does in an environment void of light is our singularity comes into play then all of a sudden, right? What science calls the pineal gland. Okay, what consciousness community call the third eye, spirituality. Now, why I call that singularity? One, right? Duality, two. Okay, that's duality, and that comes down the middle, not clinging to one polarity, one extreme. We call that neutrality, right? So that's the rising above duality, removing yourself from conflict. Is that all of a sudden at nighttime, that secretes melatonin, which initiates sleep. Now, what does that do? These eyes shut down, so your essentially reality of what you see is closed for the night. But you don't sleep because you're at a consciousness at the core, and this is your time to do some traveling. And a lot of people use the word astral traveling. Well, again, that's another form of distortion and manipulation of the mind. The true traveling is called quantum traveling. Okay. So all of a sudden, this comes into action more. And a lot of the times when we have a dream state, which have some similarities, but it's a little bit different too. That's like you seeing through the eyes of the selves that share your energy signature, because you can dial into their frequency and actually experience their realities in your dream state. It's a bit like the movie Avatar. Okay? So, as we know, the sun, symbolic for soul, which when it rises, it's a new opportunity to create, right? To forgo your and pursue your soul purpose. Okay. So, you know, the sun is born. You could look at it that way, right? So we look at in regards to Jesus' story, right? When the sun rises, it's born. When the sun sets, it dies. So, and how we bring that into the Jesus, his story and Jesus and story of Jesus, right? Okay, so let's now get into this aspect of symbology, right? So I'm going to show you this. I wish I could got it a bit bigger, but these are all symbols of the sun. Okay, so what we have here is a simple circle with a dot in it. But look at this one, the cross, right, with a circle around it. Obviously, that's used a lot in regards to religions, right? We've even got the swastika over here. Now, doesn't this look familiar? We call this the Divinity Ring. And what this Divinity Ring does is that it's a symbol of the sun, one. But what this does is this connects you to all your other suns. Hence sun means soul, right? Those higher selves that share the same energy signature of you. So this connects you into your soul family, which is your true oneness. Okay? Now, we're going to also bring in another symbol that's not on here, but we call this the sun ring. For obvious reasons, right? It's like the rays of the sun. Now, how do these tie in if they're both symbols of the sun? Here we go. Now, the way as the human, right? Us being that being in this reality here as the expression of our light, our consciousness. With these duality eyes, we see the sun like that, and we tell our young ones that's how you draw the sun, right? So this is more bound to your specific soul interfacing you in this reality, right? Because that's what we want. My reality, I want to be guided by my closest aspect of my consciousness, which is my soul. Because it sees all. It doesn't see 1% of the picture. It sees all. But the problem we get into here, and this is how we get very conditioned and programmed as the human, is we disconnect our connection to our soul, our guidance, which is not up here. It's through here. And then we allow our mind, the mind to guide our process, where it's guiding us with 1% of the understanding of what we're observing. You can see how we kind of can get very lost and veer off track. Okay, it's like looking at life and understanding life looking through a keyhole. Okay, so this is kind of a closer connection to our soul. This is the first step. Okay, and remember, as I said, we are here to create reality. We are here to expand our light. Now, what else do we call the sun ring? Why has it got the prongs going out? Because this is a broadcaster. It expands things out, expands energy out. When we put an intent in this tool, it not just creates a column of that, it expands it out. Because we're here as the soul to expand our light. That's why this one's different to this one. Because this one doesn't have the prongs go out. This one isn't a broadcaster. It's a charger. That's a charger. But it's not a broadcaster. It creates just a column. Okay? So that's where they differ, those two. Okay? And that's why we incorporate this one as the primary tool with our broadcasting system, which teaches you to become that creator. You know, we don't buy this, we don't buy that out of the idealism as the human that we lack. No, we see ourselves as truly what we're supposed to be, as our authentic self, as a creator of reality. And this helps you with that, because where are you most powerful? As the human? No. As the soul? Yes. And what's that? Sun symbolic for soul. Okay? So let's come back to sun symbols. So we've already demonstrated that is that one, right? Now another tool, and again, I just picked this up recently. It's not like been the whole story of why we developed and created these tools. And again, those crystalline tools, I didn't develop those. I'm just a distributor of those. Now, more importantly, this one. Look at this one. Doesn't it look familiar? Doesn't it look familiar? Okay, we call this... God, what do we call this? Now we call this is an expansive tool too. Okay, this has got a tool within it which is called which is also a starburst. Isn't that interesting? Star. What's our closest star? The sun. Burst, expand. What is it to burst? To expand. So it's there in the word. Okay. The way that we use this, all we're doing is we bring in a tensor ring cut to a particular measurement, which becomes a physical anchor of those higher aspects of you, right? Those higher aspects of you as a divine consciousness. And then the starburst enables it to then expand that energy out. So this tool is very much like this tool. And what do they also have in common, right? It's a symbol of the sun. That's a symbol of the sun. That's a symbol of the sun. Okay? So let's come back to this. Now, why this one can expand out further? Because when we measure how far this expands out compared to this one's more like 300 feet, and this one, well, you can change how expansive this is, because it depends on your perspective. If your perspective is very limiting, then it's going to have a negative impact on how expansive these tools can be. Because remember, they're just training wheels of something that you're facilitating through you. Okay? There's no aspect of looking for a gateway, wormhole, portal, stargate. You are one already. We call that the heart. Okay? Now, this one's more expansive, goes when we measure it just generally. It's about 300 feet out. This one's generally about 20, 25 feet out. Now, why is that? Because the level of it, right? So this is more connected into that closest aspect of your infinite consciousness, your soul, while this tensor ring is anchoring in your source energy. So obviously that's going to provide source of your energy, which is the origin of all the energy that branches out all the different realities. So it's getting understandable that this energy is going to be a bit more expansive out. Okay? And that's why that's like that. But to become more connected into those source energy, there's a pathway to be had, and we need to get to the doorway first, and hence that is your soul. The closest aspect of you is infinite consciousness. So let's come back to this. So we've already shown you that the sun ring, the divinity ring, and also this one here. Now I'll just make a quick mention about this one. Okay, so this one is quite often called the Triskelion, okay, or Hidaka, which is the element of water. Okay. Now, you as an infinite consciousness, there are 4 element aspects of you. Okay. Now, your closest connection of you as the human experience, but allowing your soul consciousness to be your guide, which is the closest aspect of you as infinite consciousness, we call that element earth. Okay, because the earth becomes an expression of you. Okay. Now, air is then that higher connection to your soul family, right? To your other souls that are your other variants that live in other realities. That's why quite often, right, when in meditation or yoga practice, what do? They get you to close your eyes, so therefore you're not being distracted by attention elsewhere, externally to you, and to focus on where? On your breath. Interesting. Now the next element is water. So this is where it connects in with this Triskelion Hidaka, because this is a vortex, right? 3 little vortexes. Now vortex is the geometry of flow. And do you know what water teaches us here? Flow. Okay? Because the vortex in water, the faster water flows in nature, therefore has more of a vortex to it, it seems to remain clean. That vortex enables that water to rejuvenate and cleanse itself. Well, if you see water that lost its vortex action and it's in stasis, which means it's not flowing, it gets dirty and smelly very quickly. Well, we can apply those same principles to us. Okay, water's a teacher. Okay, but source self, okay, which is the origin of that energy, gets branched to all the different realities. That is the element water. Okay, so does this connect into this whole connection to your divinity? Certainly, definitely, 100% yes. Okay, so now we're going to go to, and obviously we can see swastika, we don't need to go into that, but we can see this one here. We use this geometry as well here at Truly Holistic. Funny that. Okay, I'm going to show you now. Here it is here. We make a tool, and this is a little bit of a modified version of the tool that we make and sell on a website, but we call this the Ascendant. This is a big one. Okay, and we make one about half the size and then another one even smaller than that. And it's that geometry. Again, connected to Sun. Now, why we call it an ascended? Because when we map out your soul family, okay, your infinite consciousness, and we've designed it. We've already got the map for that here at Truly Holistic. Okay, because I really emphasize this aspect of understanding reality. So we've already mapped that out. Is that you are in generation 3. Generation means reality, dimension, universe, whatever you want to call it. Now, 1 and 2, generation 1 and 2 are descendants, so they're lower selves to you. So we don't really place an emphasis on that, because remember, the unwritten law of consciousness to evolve is to keep ascending up, not go back down. So you're generation 3. But what we found is there's generation 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So that's 6, right? 6 higher selves. So 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Yes. Okay. Now, with the exception of that little ring in the middle, how many rings do you see? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Huh? So they each circle. And they're all cut to measurement as well, anchoring those etheric energies, those higher energies, cut to your source self, which we call the ascension cubit. Each ring represents a higher self of you. Okay? This ring here, which goes in every ring, is your source self. So this tool is all about connecting into your oneness, your soul family. That's why we call it the ascendant. Because another word we call higher aspects of you is an ascendant. Okay. So, where do we find it? Geometry and examples of sun symbology. Funny that again. Now this is incredible stuff. Incredible information. And the thing here at Truly Holistic, we don't just talk about this. We action this every day with our clients. My life, okay, and I'd be doing this even if I wasn't a professional healer, dowser, intuitive. This is just an extension of what I'm personally doing as well. I'd still do it personally. Because why would you not want to? This is the greatest discovery of all, of who you truly are. And the origins of who you are is this aspect of the sun. The sun, worshipping of the sun, because the sun is symbolic, your soul and your consciousness, and authentically you are consciousness. You are a creator. You are a god. You're a goddess. Okay? Don't believe in his story and the manipulation of consciousness that became. These other stories that provided religious practices. And I'm not here to attack anybody's values or beliefs in regards to religions, but I'm here to provide greater insight, knowing and understanding of where all that information comes from. So we no longer live a life that is manipulative, hoodwinking us, or blinding us from the truth. Okay, it's all about authenticity, because I tell you, the world out there lacks authenticity, and we need to provide more of this information to people. So I'd love you to like this video. I'd love you to share this video to who you think needs to hear this. And if you're new to my channel, please subscribe to the channel for new content and other content that is going to be like this, that you're going to enjoy and you can bring into your own life. Now, if you'd like to book a session with me, go to trulyholistic.net/appointments/ where we do ascendance healing, where we heal health issues, doesn't matter what it is, relationship issues, manifestation issues, but also do reality coaching, not life coaching, reality coaching, to see the grander scale of what you are and how you use your creative powers, like we've been talking about in this video. A lot of the products that I've shown you there that are going to assist your ascension, they are training wheels to assist your ascension. You can buy those on my products page, which is trulyholistic.net/products/ and you'll see them all there. Anyway, until next time, catch you later.